bottom of my heart. And I just want to thank all of you for your love and support. But at the end of the day, it's not Bernie. It's you and you and you. You know, and I know, and everybody here knows, that real change never takes place from the top on down. It's not this person or that person. It is millions of people standing up, demanding change, and that's what we're about today.
Let's all try to put the pieces back together again.
So this is Nice Wonder. I'm here at the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops National Conference taking place this year at the L.A. Trade Tech College. I'm here with Kali Akuno from Cooperation Jackson. Now you're in Jackson, Mississippi. What does your work consist of right now?
Well, as I put it, you know, I'm in one part of a small project to take over the city of Jackson.
Oh wow! How's that?
I mean, you know, that's our aim and objective. We don't hide from that. We're trying to radically transform the city socially, politically, economically. I spend most of my time, but not all of my time, concentrated primarily in one area, which Cooperation Jackson is grounded in, and that is building up the solidarity economy and trying to, in the course of that building up, transform our system to one of economic democracy.
Excellent.
To lay a material foundation that will benefit the vast majority of working people and the vast majority of people. So most of my work, you know, entails helping other working class people self-organize and develop worker cooperatives. So that is kind of the day-to-day work in different forms and facets. Some of my work as kind of the director of one division of the work is trying to raise funds, trying to train people in how to actually own and operate an operation, a business. So it's grinding, grueling work, sometimes not that rewarding, but at the end of the day, I think we're making some strides at actually creating an economy and a local economy where there's substantial worker control over the economy. And we aim over the course of the next years and decades to not only scale that up to make sure that the vast majority of the economy is in worker direct control, but that we displace the exploitative systems that exist around us and replace those with life-affirming systems.
That's fantastic.
One thing that the local Green Party here is doing is we're actually out there in the community. Mm-hmm. We're out there in Skid Row doing, you know, meals, giving blankets. We're out there in Boyle Heights talking to people who are going to get kicked out of their homes because a new developer is going to build an apartment next there. We're out there, you know, marching and rallying against deportation, and you know or Black lives, you know, when they get shot by police. We're out there in the community, and you don't sort of see that. And when they're like, "Oh my goodness, you're actually a Green Party member.
Yeah,
you actually are different than what we've seen," and I think right there it sort of, you know, gives them that human experience that there's actually hope out there, and then there's another option. So that's sort of what we're doing. We're really getting out there, not only through electoral politics. I think electoral politics is second to what we're doing. The first things we're doing is movement building, because like any change could happen only through movements. And so not through me, not through one person.
And Brandon, no, you started to touch upon what the Socialist Party, well actually it's not a party, the Socialist Organization is about.
Right.
And you said
We're a multi-tendency organization.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
So what that means is that we absolutely do think that electoral politics are important. We want more people to get engaged, like Kenneth, who are going ahead and saying, okay, you know, we're tired of the way this works. We want to bring an alternative to politics outside the regular conservative liberal. But also the idea that we have to be engaged with actual activism. with pressuring politicians outside of elections, and actually building real education around ideology. So we're putting forward something that's different from regular neoliberalism or conservatism, something that's actually truly progressive.
And truly progressive and even terminology, like the word socialism.
Right.
Older generations still are not comfortable with that in this country.
Right.
You know, which shows that they're not educated about how their own history of socialism, and not educated about socialism as it exists currently around the world.
Right.
You know, so whereas the millennial generation, on the other hand, you know, they're very open to it.
But I wanted this one to be about, you know, me finding my voice, my family running into their drug and alcohol issues and the impact of that, but really how love in the end, you know, kept us together and kept us alive and kept us sane and all of that. So it was everyday writing. It was a lot of writing.
I understand. You know, I do a lot of writing too, and you know, started as a musician. So, but writing to me has expanded. You went to school and you got a degree. Why a degree in Jungian psychology?
Well, I knew that I wanted to get, I mean, after I kind of walked away from this solo show and I was like, all right, I know that I want to understand enough about the human journey because I want to talk about my own journey in big ways, but I want to help other people talk about it. And I just wanted to understand, how the hell do we end up like this? And I'm one of the lucky ones. I had gone through a lot. I mean, that's why I was motivated to do my solo show. It's why I ultimately wanted to do my show again and write my book, is because I'd gone through a lot and I'd come out the other end. And so I was also really curious about, how do we heal ourselves? How do we restore a sense of wholeness to ourselves, or even have a relationship with wholeness? And I've always been a seeker. Everyone in my family was a seeker, even though my dad was an atheist, and the atheists loved to claim my dad. My dad was definitely an agnostic and totally a seeker. And I knew I just didn't want to get I didn't know. I wanted to do something that was creative, but also really deep and soulful and spiritual, but also had a little bit of practicality to it, strangely enough. And so I found this place. I'd already known about it, but this place, Pacifica Graduate Institute, it's up in Montecito, Carpinteria, Santa Barbara area. And they have a slew of things. They teach mythology and Jungian depth psychology. I didn't know a ton about Carl Jung at the time, but I knew that he was someone who, you know, had introduced the idea of archetypes and had this relationship with what it means to be a modern person, but a spiritual person, so that you can be rational.
When I hear your dad talk about his Catholicism, I wasn't Catholic, I was, you know, Protestant, but there's similarities, obviously. And you do those things and you realize, wait a minute, you know, when I interviewed John Fugelsang once, we connected immediately, you know.
Love him.
And he said, you know, you have to wonder when people take something seriously, like a talking bush. You talk about Jesus, you know, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, that's just a metaphor, you know, and it's funny, but it's also not, you know, and it just, to me, I know that what you're talking about the combination of art and spirituality and reality. I have a song, Surfing with Jesus.
So we are connected to something bigger than us. It's just the thing that's bigger than our conscious ego. That's all it is. And
I love the way you put that.
And I remember when my dad, he went to rehab at age 68 because he was like, I'm binge drinking red wine and I'm taking Vicodin for my arthritis too much and I just need it. So he calls me like a weekend. He's like, look, we're going to AA meetings. And my dad said, I just don't know what to do with this higher power thing. And that's how I explained it to him. I said, look, Dad, it's, you know, Carl Jung sees it as this thing called the self with a capital S. It's bigger than your ego. That's all it has to be.
Indigenous peoples, there are, according to the United Nations, there are 380 million indigenous peoples left in the world. Wow. And about 60 to 70% of those that are maintaining these where they live, these areas are some of the most pristine water systems, the most
Yes.
beautiful ecosystems in the world. You're talking forest, you're talking landscapes that have been untouched, but within the U.S., and we'll get to Standing Rock here a little later.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., we see indigenous peoples on reservations throughout the U.S., mainly on this side of the Mississippi. But some of these areas are still untouched, if you will, by colonization, by progress, by capitalism.
Yeah.
So they're untouched. The Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples was put forth 15 years before that movement. And this is the third draft of the Declaration.
Is this based on the Universal Declaration of
Universal
Human Rights?
Declaration of Human Rights.
That was 1948.
1948.
We got that because of Eleanor Roosevelt. You know?
You're damn right you did. However, when it comes to indigenous rights,
Right.
that's a whole different
Yep.
set of circumstances. Because basically what happens is a country will come in and say, well, yeah, we have indigenous peoples, but they're part of the larger society. In reality, we're not. Native people, even though I speak English and drive my car around or whatever, we are a unique, distinct people in a country that has, from manifest destiny, from the from the doctrines of discovery to manifest destiny, our rights have been violated every step of the way. We do not have. We may be on reservations, but that is federally owned land.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, these indigenous peoples from all over the world came together at the United Nations to push forward this declaration. Now, granted, there was a lot of compromise because this is the third declaration or the third draft, which was finally passed. A lot of folks didn't like it.
And you mean folks in the Native American community?
In the indigenous communities throughout the world, right? And not just North
indigenous
America, indigenous
globally,
globally. People were uncomfortable with it because it felt like it was too, we were compromising on a lot of things. And moreover, we felt that we were asking permission from an oppressor who never really gives us rights anyway. So these are things that were very contentious within the groups, with the indigenous groups at the UN. But it passed. 147 member states signed it, and again, the 4 that didn't. Later on, Canada and New Zealand and the United States and Australia used some softer language to say that they would support it in some way. But still, violations go on throughout Australia and New Zealand. You've seen here in the United States with what happened at the large gathering in Standing
Rock,
Right.
I know, exactly. Whoa. When I see those tornadoes, I think of, Tornado Alley, because I lived, not only in Ohio and Indiana, but Oklahoma, and that's the whole Tornado Alley there.
Yeah, fantastic area.
What's the short story of how you got that footage? That's pretty incredible.
I traveled across the country when I was relocating to LA, and we went through some supercells and some tornado storms, and the craziest strobe lightning thing I ever experienced in my life, and felt like I fell into another dimension. And we ended up finding out about the footage from the storm chasers in the area that actually did catch the funnels and the touchdowns and all that stuff. So I reached out to them and I was like, hey, I want this footage. I'm going to make something out of it. And they were like, yeah, whatever. It's educational purposes anyways. So
Excellent. Let's start with the very basics here. What is universal basic income?
The very basic explanation is that, it's basically there to get people out of poverty, to help people to meet their basic needs, food, shelter, and clothing. That's it. Opponents of basic income, they try to make a lot of big things out of it. A lot of people in Silicon Valley, they are leading that conversation about universal basic income. So
yeah, as a matter of fact, I have seen various clips. I mean, people from all across different perspectives and political ideologies. I mean, I've seen, I haven't seen it on the far right, but I've seen Robert Reich talk about it. I've seen Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates, Elon Musk mention it. Mark Zuckerberg mentioned it. And of course, one of my favorites, Yanis Varoufakis. former finance minister of Greece. They've all brought it up in talks.
Yeah, and I have a feeling it's because the left is talking about it, so the right, But I have a feeling a lot of right people support it. Of course, we have Nixon.
Right, he did. That's right. That's right. Nixon discussed it.
It's up to us, people like me, people like Robert, people like yourself, to convey that message of involvement and being active and participating is not only viable, it's necessary, and that it is the patriotic and American thing to do. For whatever reason, Republicans and their propaganda machine have a monopoly on patriotism. If you're not for the military, you're anti-patriotic. If you're not for guns, you're anti-patriotic. Wrong. If you're for common sense, if you're for civility, if you're for humanity and community and common sense and common decency, that is patriotism. That's what we had in the 50s and 60s. That's when we had the strongest economy and the envy of the world in both medicine and education. We put a man on the moon during that time, that golden age of America. That's because we believed in people. We had a community. We had that sense of one out of many one. That is what we fought for. And now we're fighting for ourselves. It is selfish. Our society, our complete culture, our ethos is very selfish.
And I know you and Robert both come from a military background. How, Robert, you start with you. How did the military influence the way you look at the world right now?
Well, it definitely changed your perspective. There was many days where I watched the news, watched what was going on, and perspectives definitely changed. You go many places around the world, and it's not good old America the way we were raised.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. You come back and you want to change. You want to make here a better place, because at this point, I'd say, we've definitely almost become a third world country ourselves.
The Green New Deal is a set of policy priorities that the Green Party is generally proposing to pass in perhaps the next session of Congress. So, just like the New Deal of the 1930s, the Green New Deal would put people to work. We need something that people are calling a federal jobs guarantee, meaning there's plenty of work to be done all around the United States. We need the federal government to step in and say, hey, we're going to fund you to do that work that needs to be done. So we also need a basic income to go with that, so that people are no longer falling through the cracks. So we have a system that works for everyone and makes sure that people can succeed no matter what happens in their individual situation. So tied to that, those are key things. But what do we establish? We establish a national system of healthcare. That gives jobs to nurses, to teachers, to professors, to so many people that are going to go through that process of educating themselves so they can help others. And then all the research that will go into curing these diseases. The government can direct a lot more funds to the National Science Foundation, for example, to fund cancer research. That's right. Instead of the $700 billion that we sent over to the Department of Defense, let's send it over to the National Science Foundation, to the National Institute of Mental Health, so that we can cure these illnesses that are just wreaking such havoc. So healthcare will be a huge component of it, and the environment, the green environment that we desperately need.
If we survive this century, they'll do a ranking of mass murders. Exxon will be at the top of the list. Mm-hmm. We're locked into mass death right now. So when the Trump election occurred, right, Trumpster fire started, I could see Florida turn red, and I was actually seeing the color blue, because Florida's going to be underwater. It's locked.
That's right.
It's locked in. No matter what we do, half of Florida's underwater.
So what is the solution there? I mean, if there is a solution, what is it?
Democratic socialism, at least initially, as a kind of the kind of infrastructure projects as well as reparation. Naomi Klein's book, This Changes Everything, talks about the real need for what we call a Marshall Plan to deal with the massive ecological damage. Yeah. And so we will have to do real-time reparations to the global south, Latin America, but particularly West Saharan Africa will be very, very damaged by climate change.
Why worker cooperatives now?
We need to own the economy.
Yes.
That's my first answer. What do you guys think?
Consequently, if we want our democracy back, we need to get money out of politics.
Yeah.
And so I worked a lot on this topic. I've worked for organized labor, so obviously I do, but
yeah.
There's a point where you watch people come up with various fixes to the economic system, bills to regulate, donations and whatnot. But there is a fundamental principle, and what I watched was that people are putting the Band-Aid here and the Band-Aid there to try to put the finger in the dike or whatever, the little fix-up. But the fundamental principle is that we do not own our own economy. The fact that that so much wealth inequality exists and is fundamental to this, and is one of the greatest problems in our society now. So in order to reverse that, we have to take back ownership of our economy.
That's right.
And the only way we can do that is to create worker cooperatives. That's the only principle.
Hello, this is Nice Wonder, and I am here at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives National Conference in LA at the LA Trade Tech College, and I'm with
Sue Lopez
and
Ashley Ortiz.
And they are from one of my favorite worker cooperatives in the world, Arizmendi Bakeries in Arizmendi. But let's first start with Arizmendi. What is that for those who may not know exactly what that is?
Arizmendi is the shortened version of a priest from Spain, post-Civil War, post-Spanish Civil War, Father Jose Arizmendi Arrieta. So we shortened it for ease of saying and for marketing value.
Yeah.
And so we he had started the Mondragon Collectives to do job creation and business growth in the Basque region of Spain after the Spanish Civil War. He helped jumpstart the largest network of cooperatives in the world, and you could still look them up. And it was an homage to him to name the bakeries Arizmendi. We would not have started without the help of the Cheese Board Collective in Berkeley, who's been around for 51 years.
Oh, wow.
And we went to the Cheese Board in the mid-90s and said, you're doing a great job. Would you be interested in helping support other bakeries grow here as cooperatives, worker-owned cooperatives? And the Cheese Boards do what folks technically do not do in the United States, which is they put up the money, they shared the recipes, and they trained our workers for our first bakery. So they're
like a consumer co-op?
They are not. They are a worker-owned co-op, and they've been around for 51 years. They started as a sole proprietorship, and a few years later, the owners sold it to their workers, to the small group of workers, and they've grown to be an extremely successful bakery and pizza collective business in the Berkeley neighborhood. So without that gift, we would have not started the Arizmendi Network. So we're part of the family.
Yeah, we have a new sector, so we're now up to 9 cooperatives within our association.
Wow.
One of which is what we call the Development and Support Cooperative, which Sue and I do some work for, helping support all of the businesses. And then the next 2 newest ones are in a construction sector, so we've branched out to a completely different field and have a small construction cooperative doing general contracting work in the Bay Area, and also a landscape design build cooperative.
All these protests and all this attention on the issues is great. I like that. That's very important. But there's, again, what is the solution? Yes. And the solution is money out of politics.
Yes.
I mean, it always goes right back to that. And we're
always
so
goes back.
busy talking about our, I hang out with my fellow burners and activists, and we all have our pet project issues that we love so much. But I'm just like, well, we're not going to get anywhere. You want me to go, canvas over here and do all these things, but in the end, I don't know. It's
right.
not.
I totally agree, because
money out of
that's one of the
politics.
reasons why I wanted to start this discussion.
Public banking, which is what I'm focusing on now, I believe is the ideal banking system, given the fact that banks are needed. I'd also like to see the ideal government, education, economic system in general come to be, so that one day we can look back on today as a very unenlightened era, and to bring about something that fully maximizes humanity's potential.
My passion is to help communities that are suffering and that are unable to stand up for themselves because they're just trying to get by every day. I want future generations, my children's generation, to thrive, not just survive.
The ruling class politics
capitalism, the word is almost never said. You know, it's kind of interesting when I talk to my high school students and I say, have you guys heard the word capitalism? And most of them have not.
Like I'll see an episode of Star Trek or something, right? And I'll say like, hey, how much do you guys get paid? It's like, get paid? We don't, that's not what motivates us. We work for the benefit of humanity.
I'd like to make a very specific plea to anybody that has resonated with the idea of public banking, because it is so intersectional with so many other things in our society. We have a specific ballot measure right now called Charter Amendment B. It's on the ballot in November 6th in Los Angeles City. If you are a voter in Los Angeles City, please vote yes on Charter Amendment B, and if it resonates with you, share about it, tell people you know about it, and get people you know to vote yes on B, because this is a very specific action step that can have far-reaching effects.
When I think about building coalitions and political work, I refer a lot to Antonio Gramsci. And Antonio Gramsci was a leader of the Communist Party in Italy back in World War I and World War II. And he gave a lot of thought on why there wasn't a revolution that occurred in Europe, but it happened in Russia. And some of the key components that he talks about are, and I think is really important, is just like the one thing, if you want to see the left make some change and to gain hegemony, one of the big terms that he uses. Then two, the other term is historic bloc. And this historic bloc needs to be set up, and it's something that has to be done on a conscious effort, something that we're working towards. And it's because the left doesn't have that historic bloc that they don't have hegemony, they don't have power. And the right does a really great job. I mean, Trump is an example of it, a really great job.
They're very successful.
Building that historic bloc and hegemony. So, and I was having this conversation just to make the point of the education, because I love education. I think education is really important, but it's not the only thing, because there's all these parts, these collaborations of, you know, churches and unions and different institutions, and then that to get that historic bloc, we'll be able to we'll have those collaborations in a way that we need. We'll be able to do all the things that we are always talking about, and you know, doing something about the homelessness situation actually, and then doing something about poverty, and we'll have hegemony to be able to do that.
So you feel it's political? Does everybody feel that we really have to politicize what we know and the information that we share with others to educate them?
It's a different type of political, though. It's not directly like this understanding of electoral politics.
Yes.
I think that could be part of it, but it's a very with Antonio Gramsci is that there needs to be cultural change. This cultural political realm needs to happen.
The news media came to us and said, well, where's Black Lives Matter? And we said, we've been here. We said, where are you? And us having to debate with media that Black Lives Matter had fallen off, that we weren't showing up for ourselves and the communities that are most brutalized by this country and by this government. And what we had to say to them is, we are going to be here when Black Lives Matter is trendy, and we are going to be here when Black Lives Matter is not.
In a nutshell, we need priorities of our system that are at the foundation, the basis, and the root of our societies to be more compassionate, equitable, democratic, equal, and egalitarian, truly putting the people and planet before profits and money. We must do this if we are to survive and then thrive on this planet.